Welcome to Mandorla. We humbly invite you on a journey with us as we explore and deep dive in what it means to be human through this great time of awakening, generously sharing wisdom and practical tools that have helped us on our path of ascension, introducing other conscious leaders within our community to expand the collective mind to new possibilities.
Mandorla inspires us to become balanced in body and soul, feminine and masculine, physical and spiritual, creating a bridge between heaven and earth. Within this podcast, we will be communicating with all parts of ourselves, understanding our true essence, discovering our life's calling, transforming and healing ourselves and the people around us. Without further ado, let us begin.
Welcome back to another episode of Mandorla. Katrina and I are always happy to be here, always excited to be here, not always fully sure of what's going to come through. And I feel like today is one of those days where we are really just sinking into trust. And we feel like the theme that we're going to start with today, and not sure where it's going to take us, but is still linked to limitations, but really focusing in on our ancestral lineage. Also past lifetimes and things that, like, I guess we can have imprints in our DNA and that are still active in this lifetime, and how maybe just exploring them, understanding that sometimes it may not come from the limitation may not be from our lifetime here, and maybe we're wanting to explore how we discover those, or for, anybody watching on how they can discover it for themselves. And I guess what the process would be to clear those limitations.
Yeah, like just observing and asking ourselves those questions, reflecting on questions of why we do what we do. And I mean, I know that we've talked about this a lot, but if we're honing in on ancestral patterns, it's so crazy how much we pick up from, like, our parents, and they picked up from their parents, and so on and so forth. And then you wonder, how much are we still actually living that's just been regurgitated, where it doesn't actually fit in our societal conditions anymore. And then the polarity of that, which I was like discovering on the weekend, is like, how much wisdom have we lost because of societal conditioning as well. So it goes both ways, but it's just posing the curiosity and the reflection of looking at which side of the fence that this could be interfering or supporting our lives.
Yeah.
Like I was saying to my husband, we went away, and I love going away because I have like so much space. There's something for me about leaving the family home. That's something in itself, because what happens is that in our homes, they're our beautiful safe places, but we get into lots of patterns and programs, and we have entanglements of relationships and stuff. So if you actually leave your home, and even better, you leave your community and you go out, it's kind of like, for me, it feels like a breath of fresh air of like my third eye opens, my capacity opens, and I start to see things a little bit clearer, where sometimes I can get a bit foggy when I'm in the home. And I was saying, like, if you think about, like, I can't believe that it's actually taken me, like, I'm turning 39 this year, and I am only just really showing interest in my like my grandparents' parents, and like, just like, who were they and what did they actually contribute to this world, and what did they actually, like, what, I'm actually curious, but I'm like, I wonder why it takes you to get to a certain point in your life that you actually care about those things. Because when I was younger, like, I couldn't connect. I couldn't relate. It just felt so old school and not the way I was going. Like, I just wasn't interested. It's like my rejection of the old, outdated ways actually hindered my ability to take the good as well.
Yeah. I feel like I can really relate to that. And in a recent like awareness that I was exploring, my reality is wanting to go from horizontally co-creating with people and move more vertical, in particular with my ancestors. And you know, I think it's really hard when you are connected to the personality of the person that was here. So for me, for example, I didn't have grandparents, and it was something that like I desired so much, and I'd see my friends with all their grandparents, and I felt like I was like missing that extended family or that extended love, or, you know, like grandparents typically dote on their grandchildren, and I just didn't get to have that in my lifetime. But my father's mum, in her time here, and I only got a little bit of time with her before my dad passed away, was an alcoholic. So the thought of, in my day-to-day life right now, she's passed on now, but like connecting with her, there's almost like an undesire to, because of the identity that I've put on her here. But as a soul, she would have so much wisdom for me, and she's really wanting to connect with me at the moment. But I think this is what happens when we're in a human experience. We can, it's kind of like, I don't know how it's linked, but it's kind of how you're saying you leave the town and then all of a sudden it becomes clear. It's like, I want to start seeing that for her, that she is actually just a soul. And yes, she played a character and did have an identity here, but there's so much wisdom that she can have from that side that I could connect to. Yeah, so I feel like that's really relevant for what we're talking about, because I think what I'm understanding about what I'm communicating is it's from us having an identity on them that creates the separation.
Yeah. And it blows my mind. Like, I know this is probably not everyone's truth, but it is mine, that I did have grandparents, but I learnt the most about them at their funerals. And I'm like, isn't that crap? That we literally, I was like listening to their stories and going, wow, I had no idea. I had no idea. And even if there is an identity on certain behavior, like say they are alcoholics and that's what you remember, that's the first thing that comes into your mind. Like, there's also wisdom, and like if we knew their childhood and we knew what they went through and what it was like for them to grow up, there's wisdom in that. Because what happens is that we are, like, our lineage brings down patterns and programs, right? And so like we regurgitate behaviors. We tend to, unless someone comes in and changes that, we tend to parent the way we were parented, even if that's just for a little while before we change it. And so if we look at past trauma or past perceived negative things, then we can really get clear of, is that still in any way, shape or form in our household? Is that little girl that was treated so bad, is she still in me somewhere? Am I still holding where I also was treated like that? Or is that happening for my own children? Like, even the negatives can be wisdom that we can take away.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, we've got to know about it we've got to have interest. We've got to have connection, right?
Well, and I think that I'm just going to be vulnerable and admit this. I've spoken to a lot of elderly because I seeked that relationship. So when I do get with someone who's older, I ask them all the questions, but I'm vulnerably being truthful right now. If I were to see them again, I probably would have to ask their story all over again. It's like I listened, but I wasn't fully present to what they were actually saying. I wasn't at a capacity that I feel like I'm starting to move in now, where in each moment I'm like, I'm with you. Like, what you're telling me is actually being absorbed. My mind's not busy elsewhere. And I don't think I've had that in the past. I haven't had that presence with them, maybe because of lack of caring or lack of, I don't know for what reason, but
I feel like it's something, I think that's such a great question to ask. And what I think I'm learning about this is that if you don't feel like there's a reason to listen, if there's not something in that to connect with, then I think that's where we forget about it, or there's nothing. Like, it's got to, every relationship, and I will stand by this, if for it to be important to me, it's give and take. It's equal. And I'm not going in with intentions of, you've got to give me what I've got to get back, but that's co-creation. That's why
Oh, there's got to be desire from both ends for that
Yeah,
connection,
and like
right?
if you're listening to someone's story, then is it true? Is it credible? Like, because also I think our bodies tend to fade out if they're telling a porky, right?
Yeah.
Or if there's not resonance,
Yeah.
even if it's unconscious. Like,
Yeah.
I do believe that our bodies are so intelligent that there's a reason that we didn't remember, or we couldn't connect, or we're not interested, because and there could be a million different reasons, but I would trust the body's intellect as well. But I'm wondering, like, now when I look back at as a childhood, like as a child, I did have that beautiful blessing of having my grandparents there. And I know I loved them and cherished them. But I think that there was something in what you were just saying. There was a reason where the connectability wasn't taken to its highest potential.
I'm just going to throw something into the mix because it just keeps coming in. I think that the disconnection or not being able to connect to it is because they're actually just in the regurgitation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what that fully means, but it feels like it fits.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, the story that they're telling you is actually almost robotic. It's like they're just regurgitating the same thing, but it's actually not the depth of, I don't know. I'm getting to something. I'm on
you
it.
are, because this is what kind of helps me understand where I'm at, not just if we take it outside of Ancestry. I can't hang out with the same people that are living the same life, like
Yes.
Groundhog Day all
Yeah.
the time. I'm like, there's nothing new here for either of us. We are hanging out just for something to do, not because there's any new connectability. There's no, I don't even know if connectability is a word, but I keep saying it. Anyway, there's nothing new here. Like, we are not progressing this
Yeah.
relationship, or each of us are not progressing anywhere.
On an individual level.
And I
yep.
think a lot of us can probably, well, I don't know, but I can relate to that. Felt like every time I'd go to see my grandparents, we would have the same afternoon tea at the same time, at the same...
They got stuck in a loop of existing just a certain way. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess you love them. You absolutely love them, but it's like how that's rapid aging. To me, that is rapid aging.
So this is similar to something that we were talking about a little earlier on, and I'm just going to follow the flow of where we're going right now, in me realizing that I'm stuck in limitation by continuously going to the gym, right? And it's like I have certain patterns of how I live in my day-to-day that are not being interrupted by spontaneousness, which is a discussion I had with my husband. He's like, talking about how I can be very serious and not very spontaneous. And then, like, every now and then he gets to see that fun version of me come out. But for the most part, I think this is what happens. And then we get to old, boring people. Sorry, grandparents. But, like, because we just get stuck in our own ways of this is how every day looks, and we show up and there's no, like, pattern interrupt to make us make a different decision. And I think that's where we end up. But it feels like it's the same regurgitation. And I want to bring this back in because it feels like it's important to explain it in a way that's going to make sense. So, like when you first meet someone and then, you spend a bit of time with them and then you get communicating about your life for whatever reason. Oh, like, I came from here. That's the regurgitation that keeps us limited. That's what keeps coming through. So it's like the story or the language of which we're using from the lens that we've seen it from gets regurgitated that many times. It becomes like a limit that gets put over us. And that is what gets carried down in the DNA strand. Doesn't mean it was even true. But that's what I'm getting. That's what my grandma can see outside of now. And that's why I would connect with her, because she obviously wouldn't have been able to see it while she was down here, but she can actually see through what that was.
Yeah, because I think there's so much gold in being able to connect with the past, the present, and then the future. And I think this is where people get out of balance. It's like, cool. Like, I love learning where people have come from and how they got here now. But now, where are you going? And that's where in my world right now, this is where I'm lacking to see that people have that vision of where they're going next. And even like, I don't expect, or like everyone can do life themselves, even with my, let's say, I don't expect myself to have a fully written out future, but I need personally something to work towards.
Yes. So for me, I'm not sure, and I'm very visually, like that's how I normally see, I see everything. But for me, it's a feeling of what I want to feel when I'm older. So I'm following a feeling that I'm chasing, more so than what it looks like.
So whatever it is that sparks forward movement. So I had, and this is helping me really anchor in, I had inspiration last week. There's a lot. We record these weekly, but I swear we live 13 lifetimes in between each time. So I'm like trying to recap a little bit, but inspiration struck after last week, and I was like, I have all of this inspiration that wants to come through. What do I want to do with it? And I decided that I was going to start writing a book. Ooh. And I was like, oh, and my husband was getting curious, and he's like, what, like, who's it for? And people go into like, who's your target audience, da 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 da. And I just wanted to say, F all of that. Yeah. I don't care. Like for me, it's the feeling. I want all of these amazing abilities that I have to go somewhere. Yeah. And I'm like, if I tune into everything that I've been successful in life, or everything that I've done and completed, it's been for the reason for my family. Yeah. That's me. Yeah. My children are what sparks me to do better in life. Yeah. And so I'm like, with this creation, it's exactly the same thing. Like the things that I'm passionate about that I want to write and have come through in this book is so that I have a legacy that my family for generations to come, it's like a blueprint of how to live your best freaking life in society. No matter how society changes, if you stay true to these values and who you are and that remembrance, then my grandkids and their grandkids can look and say, oh, that was my grandma or my great grandma or my whatever that paved this way for our family. And I'm like, that is like what if no one else ever read it, like if they did, awesome. If they didn't, that fulfills me.
It feels so similar for me for this podcast, like to have like videos of great grandma Trina talking about this. It is absolutely my truest belief that we are in a great time of awakening and changing for our planet. And I feel like I had chosen to come to Earth in this time to be a great part of that. So I'm pioneering a new age, and my great-grandchildren are going to see where that started. And through this and through AI, they will be able to look back on it and be like, whoa, like how different it was back now, like what you're talking about. And, oh, God, they came from a lineage that they didn't choose. They just lived life like, like boring, like, and then they're living their best lives, because I think progressively that's what we're moving towards. But the crunch, the history. So I would be the history of where those wheels started turning differently,
Yeah. And you brought AI into that, which got my attention a little bit, because we talked about this last week of like, almost like a fear of people connecting more with this invisible consciousness than their own physical lives. And we're here to be human, right? And in the physical. And I think this is where, again, that I can feel the spark of this book and this wisdom being actually anchored into a human life. Because when we have beautiful connections that are safe and they're real, there's nothing that can take us out of that, right? It's just only when we don't have that. So it's up to each individual to anchor and decide what it is for that spark to create it. It's 100% relationships. I don't care who you are. People can tell themselves that they don't care, they'd prefer to live on their own, I don't believe it. I actually don't believe. I've had moments myself where I'm like, it would be way easy just to go out to the bush and lose myself and live in my happy place. But I think that's for a breather. That's for the time to come away and breathe and go, okay, I can let through a new vision. But the connectivity is we are all at a higher degree, we're all one, right?
Well, look what happened in COVID when everybody got pulled away from being able to connect. It's the highest suicide rates that there's ever been. People need that.
Connection is absolute uttermost for the health of us holistically.
Although I do see that AI can present an obstacle within our field of where it feels like connection.
Yeah.
And it may feel like the most connected anyone has ever given them the opportunity to actually feel fully seen and held and...
Again, beautiful. If we use it in a healthy way, like connection, as long as connection is equal. And this is where I was talking to my husband the other day and I'm like, I can see. So you get your social media influencers, right? And you've got these young teens that are in this vulnerable part of their life and they literally trust someone they've never met that's an influencer that has all of these success or whatever. They're trusting their wisdom over their ancestral lineage and what is actually real for them. Because guess what? These people live a whole different other reality with whole different, half the time not even in the same country, don't have the same societal things come up against them. Yet they're trying to mesh and find, oh, they're successful. They look like this. What if I look like this? Or what if I do this? And they're actually trying to find themselves through strangers, people that they've never met, people that they literally... Yeah, and my point is it's because we've lost this safety within family of finding ourselves and being celebrated or being able to make mistakes, or this connectivity in family has gone astray to the point where now our teenagers are looking for some random that just because they've got 1 million views, they must know it all, right? It's a bit concerning, but it also is very exciting for me because I can see where the solutions lie for like our family. And then when we do that really well, that has a ripple effect, right? And it gets down to the wholesome substance of what being human is all about.
I'm a little bit lost. I'm not going to lie. I'm like, whoa, where did we just go?
If you're lost, probably everyone else is too. Sorry about that, but it will drop.
Okay. So, yeah, I don't know where to take it from.
I guess I think what I'm saying is when we can connect to our roots and our own family dynamics, even if it's messy, especially when it's messy, we can do that we don't have to be in it. Like I said, we take breaks away from our family home so that we can see things clearer, see patterns, see programs, see where we want to go, break away from that conditioning. So even if it's messy, it's worth observing and understanding our ancestry and where our grandparents came from and all of this and connecting in. And we may not have them living anymore, but what you were saying is your ancestors are trying to connect in with you, right? Because even when they're in heaven or whatever you believe over the other side of the veil, we are connected to everything, living or not living on earth anymore. We can connect in, we can have conversations. And I kind of feel like this is a continuation of what we were saying last week about no limitations. There's no limitations on who we can connect with and how we do that. Our communication, when we can communicate with the living, the dead, the plants, we can communicate with anything in an empowering way if we want answers. Were you about to say something?
Oh, I've had a few things coming through as you're communicating. So it's like we can connect with everything because there is no separation. Everything is us. And so that, I guess, is that. What was coming through? So I had a dream last night, and this is a familiar thing that I've talked about if you've watched any other episodes on Mandorla, but the dream was showing me my mum. I may get emotional with this. This is something that I'm working through in this lifetime. And it's like either like my higher self or like my guides or whatever it was showing me my mum and saying, there it is, none of the other stuff matters, just spend time with. And I think this is what we're getting to, right? It's like, just make the time. But I'm actually not so, it was my mum in my dream state, but it was active from a conversation I had with my husband about being more present with the children. And like, you know, my son is so in love with fishing at the moment. And he's like asking Clint every day, night fishing tonight, Dad? Night fishing tonight, Dad? Like, and he's so excited about it. And Clint's like, I'm going to be older one day and I'm going to regret saying no because of whatever felt more important at that time, you know? And I feel like it's the same thing as what I was seeing with my mum. Like it is, we're granted this time that's not forever in the physical. It is forever outside of it because there's no separation. But we're granted this time, like, that's actually what matters. That's what counts.
That's
and that
what
is
we're here for.
Yeah. And so, you know, it's got to be intertwined, I feel, in with our ancestry because we have this access point. So why are we not choosing to access that? So like being around my mum more, or even exploring it through my children because they are...
And playing together. This is
Yeah.
I feel like, so Katrina and I were talking about our blind spots because everyone's got blind spots, right? When we as conscious as you are, there's some things that we just can't see or understand that are limiting us. And this is where I know the answer is to explore our ancestry in order to find these limitations. And Katrina and I have been sharing, we can see that there's a blind spot, but I haven't known what it is. And I really think that it is understanding that we came here to play.
Yeah.
Like in our ancestry, there's been a lot of survival, right? They've had to survive. We don't live in that reality anymore.
Yeah.
And I think now, I know now we get to play.
Yeah, so I can feel the clearing. So it's been also on theme for me of wanting to play more and have a different playground and just enjoy this human experience. And it's linked in with the not giving a shit about other stuff. Just go spend that time with your mum in play, like in fun, in just creation energy. It's the same with my children, and I can feel it like so strong on my heart. And what I'm also working with at the moment, and I feel to bring it in now, is understanding how nature outside of me is not separate from me. So when it's reflecting something, that's actually reflecting something internally as well. And over this past week, I have been feeling a lot of emotion, actually just having like waterfalls of tears coming out my eyes and having no idea what it's for. And it feels like it's all literally just coming together through this conversation, because I got up this morning and I was like, oh, there's emotion there again. Again, not having to figure it out, just allowing it to be present. And then when I walked outside and seen that it was a cloudy day, I was like, oh, I might be a bit foggy and not be able to see with clarity right now. It might not be fully clear, but when it rains, that's cleansing. So adding in the ancestry and that just being the topic of discussion today, I feel like I am releasing a lot of emotion and seriousness and all of that from my ancestry right now, so that I can step into this playground, because that is what's important.
Oh my gosh, I just had the biggest drop in and awareness. So I might have mentioned it on here before, I'm not sure, but I have had a big heart calling to Egypt. And so I've said this year, non-negotiable, I'm going to Egypt. And my husband is like, okay, well, I'm coming too, and which is awesome. So we're going to do that together. And we were kind of like, so we're organizing this beautiful holiday. And we're talking about where else we can go. And we've like toyed with all these different things. And the other day he said, we could go to Vietnam. And that's the emotion, right, that you're talking about. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, I am a blubbering mess, could not understand what was going on. But there was something about him saying, I want to go to Vietnam, because we'd spat out all these other different places, which my knowing was like, he knows I want to go here. So it was all about me. I want to go to Egypt. I want to go here. And I was like, yep. But I'm all about equality. And it was like, that's so beautiful that we're going to all these places. We're both going to have an amazing time. But when he said Vietnam, that my husband has literally watched war documentaries for as long as I can remember. For as long as I can remember, he's been so interested. And when we are drawn to things, it's not by accident. And I have really felt that he's had, whether it's past lives or whatever, that has been in his past,
or the ancestors,
all
could have,
the ancestors, right? Which is probably more to the point because this is our topic today. But I'm like, there is a reason that would be the best co-creation for him to go there, and it's on the topic of when we understand what our ancestors have been through, when we understand that their path, what they lived, thank goodness, is now not our reality, right? There's a reclaiming, there's an understanding, there's like rewiring that can occur. And that was what my body, like I didn't understand, but my body, he was like, are you okay? And I'm like, we need to go there. And it is literally like, listen to the body. If it's not, and again, this is what we've been talking about, if it's not like, yes, I want to go there, then potentially that's not the correct, or if you don't get there, then maybe it's not for you. So like it went for Egypt at fuck yeah, and then Vietnam at fuck yeah. So we've pretty much got it laid out now.
Yeah.
And I think if we just trust our bodies, like that emotion, you can't deny that emotion, right? Like these are our guide, this is our breadcrumbs to highest potential living.
And I wonder, like, I'm just bringing it into my theme, so obviously if it doesn't resonate, it doesn't resonate, but if you were to look at that emotion that came up and what could have been in your ancestry or a lived experience in the war, and the crying of it and releasing of it, like that would be your body's way of going, like, because you can imagine if you're in war, like how serious those times, the play would not have existed, like it couldn't exist. And then after that it was like like hunger and famine and stuff that occurred after that, and rebuilding of the country and all the rest of it. So like if we're having a look at ancestry, like I wonder whether that's all linked with why it's a limitation on why we find it hard to play in this lifetime.
Oh my God, you're so hitting every nail on the head, because when the emotion came through in such an intense way, it actually wasn't sadness or anything. It was pure love. Like, I am so happy. Like, it's like we hit a goal of you just claimed something for yourself that you deserve. Like I was celebrating him so hardcore that it was just pure love coming out in tears, because I'm like, it feels like he could go back to Vietnam and rewrite a whole story, breaking through limitations of like what has occurred, but just rewriting it and reclaiming a childhood part of himself. Like I don't know whether his childhood was capped because there was still mentality around, like I know his dad's really old school, and without even knowing, like I'm not tuning into this, but there was definitely still elements of seriousness because of so many different things. And I feel like it's a reclaiming of that playfulness and what life gets to be if he chose to actually do that for himself.
Well, it's a limitation on us if we can't access that, because how can we be the creators of our reality in such a fun way, and a way that like brings us joy and like allows us to laugh at things and, like all of those emotions. Like, how do we get to be that and step into that if we've got a limitation on us saying, no, in this lifetime we've got to be serious, because if we're not serious we could lose money and we could do this and we could, and we will be without food, and what will we do if we do that? And like, there's like that, I can see so clearly like that. My actual lifetime here doesn't even make sense for me to be living like that. Like I don't need to be that. So it's like unveiling that, and that's connection to our ancestors. Like there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that they're with us today going like, yes, break free from that. They don't want to come back into a lineage where it's
celebration.
Still,
Right.
Like almost an excitement of like, yes, thank you for tuning in. We do want to clear that. Like it doesn't have to be anymore because they're high. Like if they have passed on, they're in a different vibration now that they aren't entangled in it anymore. Kind of like when you go away camping, you're out of the entanglement so you can see clearer. It's like allowing us to know. I think that's our blind spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, do we have to go to Vietnam and Egypt to do this? Absolutely not. But we've worked to that point where we do live higher potential now. And was that always our reality? Absolutely not. Like if I had even a couple of years ago entertained this thought, I would have thought I was batshit crazy even having this conversation, because that was not, it was too far out of, I had too many limiting beliefs, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm like, of course we'd go, why don't we just chuck Africa on there and this and that?
Yeah.
Like I have no limitations.
Yeah.
I've broken through that now.
Yeah.
But what I am observing is that that is not necessarily the case for my own kids at the moment. So I'm going, we've created this life for you that we're like, let's go to Africa, let's do this. And they're like, And what I know and what I see in my daughter is that her younger childhood was not an abundant, let's go do this. We were very scarcity, very
In like her formative years.
in her younger years, and her even more so than my son. And it was always like, no, we can't afford that lollipop, like a 40-cent lollipop. No, we can't. Like, we can't. It was like every penny was accounted for.
Yeah.
And that's what she kind of grew up in. And if I look at my ancestry, it was the same. Like, it was full survival. We lived in housing commissioned homes. Like, it was, everything was accounted for. And it was, I couldn't have 2 toppings on my sandwich. I couldn't have ham and cheese. I just had to have either ham or cheese. Like, that's where I came from. And it got regurgitated into my daughter's childhood. And so even though we've done so much work and that is not our reality anymore, I still see it in her, where she's like limited in that. I don't think I can have that and that. And I'm like, of course you can. So even though that's telling me that I've still got some inner child work of my own to do. Yes, because she's a reflection, but also being patient with other people sort of catching up to and choosing that for themselves, because it is a choice. We can stay in the limitations that sometimes can create safety, let's be honest, because it's familiar and we kind of know what's going to come. Whereas if you go to Egypt and you go to Vietnam and you go to these places where people are like, that's dangerous, that's like, you're going into uncertainty, right? It's a whole new playground at a higher frequency or a different frequency.
Well, if those thoughts are implanted, then they're going to create. That's the limitation in itself.
Yeah.
If they're just not in the field, then they can't create.
Yeah. So I saw this, I can't remember the meme completely, but it's like the greatest gift that we can give our kids is an example of what's possible, right?
Yeah.
And that is so true, because I mean, I've broken through a lot in my lifetime, but if I was just regurgitating what my parents have done, and I love you parents if they ever listen to this, but it's very mundane. It's absolutely not what I'm now creating. And I love them, and I'm hoping to inspire them to, they've still got a lifetime to live, so get out there and do it. But I feel like to finish on this story that I heard, which is it's never left me. And they were talking about a roast. Why do you cut the ends off a roast? Have you heard this story? I don't even do that anymore. But there was a family.
Who does that?
There was a family of generation and generation. And they used to cut the ends off their roasts, right? And they were like, until one person said one day, why do we actually do that? Like, why do we cut the ends off the roast? And then they all started thinking, and they asked grandma, who asked grandma, and it was because back in the day they had a small oven that the roast couldn't fit into.
Oh.
And so for all of these generations,
Right.
they didn't even know why they were doing it. They were just cutting the ends off, wasting this meat, because once upon a time they used to have a little oven and now they have a big oven. Like, how many things in your reality, or how many stories or how many behaviours are still reoccurring for things that are just not your reality? It's just not real anymore. You got a big oven, not a little oven. You got a big playground, not a little playground. You got a big bank account, not a little bank account. If you don't, then how can you create a big bank account? Like, it's we just get to create life to be whatever we want. We just need to open this third eye, and we got to open our capacity to feel more. Feels very complete for me. Have you got anything to add on to that?
There was just one part that was kind of coming through. Where are we at?
About 40.
Okay, but it was really, really fast. There was one part that was coming through that could be ancestral. It also could be past lifetime, but I know that my reality is walking me through it now, and it feels like it's a remembrance of that lifetime. But in this instance, it's a remembrance for a good reason. It's the opposite of what we've been talking about, like clearing it because of those lifetimes creating limitations for us. However, this lifetime, because I'm hosting the retreat at the end of the year in Bali, and it's bringing back a remembrance of Lemuria. And what I'm discovering through that was, so Lemuria was before the Atlantic times, and the Atlantean times was more technology based, but Lemuria was actually nature based. And so there was a really beautiful connection between nature, ourselves, and the divine that wasn't lost back then. And so my reality is bringing me to closer encounters so that I can have this remembrance at the moment. And I know that, like, I'm being taken through steps, like if you say you're going to be of service, and then it's like, I'm creating a retreat, and so I'm going through the steps, kind of like what we do with Mandorla through this. And it's literally giving me a remembrance of a past lifetime where my ancestors, would have lived through, and myself would have lived through. And right now it's so I think the point that I'm trying to land before I finish this is there's no limit on how far it goes back. I know our human minds tend to go to what we can think of, like a couple of 100 years ago, but it actually goes back really far. And there are things that our ancestors did and knew, or that we did and knew from our past, that actually want to come back because we've forgotten it. We've gotten lost in AI or and forgotten the importance of that. And I just feel like to balance out what we've been talking about, there is also that. And so we can tune into both. What do we want to remove from that's limiting us in this lifetime from maybe where we've gone astray, where we've forgotten presence, we've forgotten community, we've forgotten, and then also calling back in the ancestors to remind us how we did live and we did thrive. And that felt like that was important to share that.
Which is what I see Vietnam and Egypt being. So it feels more of like a healing and breaking through limitations in Vietnam, but for Egypt, for me, it's a remembrance. And I mean that my family does not come from Egyptian. Like we don't have that lineage yet. Exactly what you said. I feel like it's lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes, and there's something that I'm ready for that I'm going to remember when I go to Egypt. Like I can feel it. Every cell in my body is buzzing and it's ready for this remembrance. And again, imagine if I'm already feeling like, wow, look, I've like broken through all these limitations and this is my life now. Imagine by the time I come back from Egypt, I'm like, maybe I'm going to the moon. Who knows?
Just downloaded all these new codes.
But I
Stay tuned.
I guess like, oh my gosh, if you follow that travel is such a beautiful blessing. Like if you haven't traveled, just my encouragement is allow yourself to, even if you're traveling in your mind's eye to start off with until all your stars align, but at least allow yourself to desire that in your future.
You can travel 3 hours away from your home. Like, travel can be overseas, but it also can be outside of the bubble of your community.
100%. Yeah, three suburbs over. This is where I was talking to off the end of our last... I said I was finished. I'm not finished. Last week we were talking about empowering communication, right? And so I was like sitting with my daughter and we were talking about communication and everything, because I was like trying to wrap my head around, she's turning 18 and I'm like, we can go to Bali and we can do this. And she's just so like, and I'm like, what is wrong with you, kid? But anyway, I'm like, no, actually, all right, you are super intelligent. Tell me your intelligence. Claim and own your intelligence right now. Where do you want to go and what? Because she is very adventurous and she's like, I want to go over to WA. There's something there. And that was claim your intelligence, because there is something that you want to collect from WA, whether it's a remembrance, whether it's a healing, who cares what it is. There's something in there that she wants to collect data for. And we have talked about this when we've talked about Bali. Like, it's collecting information and it's collecting what we love about different cultures and all the things. There's just so much to say about travel, but she's so smart. She's like, I want to go to WA. I want to experience that. And then who knows where's next. But her body's got its own innate knowing of where she wants to go, which will be the highest potential for her. So I'm like, okay, you're less crazy now. Just, can you make it happen? Can you just please? And I'm like, and by the way, I think I want to come too. Could I come?
Yeah.
I want to go to WA.
I'll go all places.
Yeah. So, just allow yourself that inner, that's the inner child. When we're children, there's no cap, right? We go everywhere in our imagination.
Yep.
I lived on a cane farm. I was bored shitless. So I spent a lot of time in my imagination, just, dreaming.
More of that. Bring that back. Like, just bring it back to this age. We can be that now.
Yeah.
I want to be that now. I'm so excited to be more playful and to have cleared this limitation of seriousness and, not so spontaneous, and like cut through rhythms that, it's good to have sometimes, but also the flexibility of like not having them as well. And
Yay. Awesome.
All right. Well, we'll
maybe organize some travel or some imaginative desires that you would like to manifest one day.
Or travel to your ancestors if they're not with us anymore, or travel to your actual ancestors if they are still with us.
That's beautiful too.
And learn from them, and
that feels like a nice conversation. We hope you have a great week.
Till next time.
Bye. Thank you for joining us in another episode of Mandorla. We want to acknowledge your contribution in the co-creation of our new evolved world.
Sending you all so much love, and until next time, remember, you are the creator.